The night was silent, but the silence did not belong to Earth anymore. In the skies, strange lights moved across the stars, and every city felt the weight of something unseen. People whispered about them, but no one dared to speak too loudly. The invaders had arrived months ago, and Earth had been forced into fear. Their ships were dark, sharp shapes that cut through the clouds. They hovered above oceans and mountains, watching, waiting. At first, they had not attacked. They had only shown themselves, as if their very presence was enough to break human courage. Governments tried to speak with them, but no one ever heard a reply. The invaders seemed to listen, but never answer. The soldiers who guarded the skies had learned one thing: the ships could not be harmed. Missiles, lasers, every weapon failed against the shimmering shield that surrounded the alien craft. Humanity realized quickly that resistance was not victory, it was suicide. And so the people of Earth waited, wondering what the invaders wanted, wondering if submission was the only choice. On the edges of New York, a man named Daniel stood on the roof of a half-broken building. The city below looked alive with fear. He had seen the ships pass every night, and tonight was no different. But Daniel was not watching them with terror in his eyes. He was watching them with something else: anger. He remembered when the first city fell to the invaders' silent power. It had not been destroyed with fire. Instead, the lights in the city went out, every machine stopped, every gun froze. And then the people surrendered. Daniel hated the memory of it. Far away, in the deserts of Africa, a young woman named Amina walked with her brother. The sky above was heavy with the black shadow of another ship. She whispered to him, "They want us to kneel." Her brother, only 15, asked, "And if we don't?" Amina's face was pale, but her voice was strong. "Then maybe they will see what humans really are." Everywhere on Earth, people felt the same quiet thought growing. The invaders wanted submission, but humanity was more than fear. That night, the invaders made their first demand. Across every screen, every speaker, a deep mechanical voice spread. It spoke in a language not human, but somehow everyone understood. The words burned in the air. Earth will submit. Your armies will fall. Your leaders will bow. Resistance is death. The message repeated again and again. Cities froze in silence. Streets emptied. Children cried while their parents tried to look brave. But Daniel, standing on the roof, whispered back to the sky, "Not all of us will kneel." The invaders thought they had already won, but what they did not understand was that humans were never simple. They could be afraid and still fight. They could be weak and still resist. They could lose battles and still refuse to surrender. In a hidden base under the mountains, a small group of scientists and soldiers gathered. Their leader, an old general with a scar across his face, looked at the dark screens in front of him. "They believe we will break," he said slowly. "But they do not know us. They do not know what happens when humanity is pushed against the wall." The scientists had been working on something dangerous, something untested. They had studied the invader ships, the strange shield that made them untouchable. And in the data, they had found something small. So small the aliens must have believed it did not matter. A flaw. A weakness. A door that had not been closed. The general stared at the data and felt the first spark of hope. If the weakness was real, then Earth had a chance. Not to defeat the invaders with power, but to defeat them with human cleverness. Above the planet, the ships moved again. They spread across the continents, their shadows stretching like knives across the land. People waited for fire, for destruction. But the invaders only waited. They thought fear would be enough. And in that waiting, something began to change. Humans started to whisper to each other, not with fear, but with courage. Amina's voice carried through her village. Daniel's anger spread to his neighbors. Soldiers in secret bases loaded their weapons again. Scientists risked their lives to study what should have been impossible. The invaders had demanded Earth's submission, but what they had awakened instead was Earth's resistance. In the sky, one of the massive ships lowered itself until it was almost touching the towers of New York. People screamed and ran, but Daniel did not move. He stood on the roof, watching the ship as if staring into the eyes of a beast. And in that moment, he made a silent promise, that if the invaders wanted Earth's soul, they would have to fight for it. The world was holding its breath. The war for Earth had not yet begun, but the first step was taken. And in that quiet step, the invaders had already made their mistake. They believed humans would kneel. They did not understand yet, humans always rise. The ship above New York did not move for hours. It floated like a mountain of steel, silent and heavy, covering the city in shadow. People stayed inside their homes, hiding behind locked doors, as if the thin walls could protect them. The air was heavy with fear. But not everyone was hiding. Daniel was still on the roof. His fists were clenched, his eyes fixed on the ship. Every part of him wanted to scream at it, to challenge it, but he knew one voice could not be heard across the sky. Still, his anger was stronger than his fear. Inside the hidden mountain base, the old general spoke to his team. "They are testing us," he said. "They want to see if fear alone will break us. But fear can only go so far." His voice was deep, steady, and every soldier in the room listened closely. One of the scientists, a thin man with tired eyes, placed a file on the table. "We believe we can open their shield for a short time," he said. "Maybe seconds. No more." "Seconds are enough," the general replied. "If we can hurt them once, just once, the world will know they are not gods." The soldiers nodded. It was not a full plan, not even a strong chance of victory. But it was something. Humans did not need certainty, they only needed hope. That same night, in the desert where Amina lived, the alien ships moved again. One descended over her village, covering the sand with a cold blue light. The people dropped to their knees, some out of fear, others out of instinct. But Amina stood tall, her brother at her side. The ship released a voice, the same deep sound that had spoken across the world before. "Submit," it ordered. The villagers trembled. Some cried. But Amina shouted back with all her strength, "We are not yours." The blue light focused on her. For a moment, it looked as if the ship would destroy her where she stood. But then it pulled away, lifting higher into the sky. The villagers stared at her with wide eyes. Some called her brave. Others called her foolish. But inside their hearts, something had changed. If one girl could shout at the sky, then maybe others could too. Across Earth, small sparks of defiance began to appear. A farmer refused to abandon his land. A soldier who had once laid down his gun picked it up again. A child painted the words "We do not kneel" on a broken wall. The aliens did not notice at first. They believed the silence of Earth was proof of submission. But beneath the silence, something dangerous was growing. In New York, Daniel finally left the rooftop. He walked through the streets, past empty shops and frightened faces. People recognized him. The man who never ran, the man who always stared at the ships. Some whispered his name, asking if he knew what to do. Daniel shook his head. "Not yet," he said. "But soon." The next morning, the general ordered his first strike. It would not be a full attack. Earth did not have that power. It would be a test, a whisper of resistance, to prove that the invaders could bleed. A small team of fighters was chosen, and Daniel was among them. He did not understand how his name had reached the general, but he did not refuse. He felt the weight of something larger than himself, as if the anger in his heart had called him to this moment. The plan was dangerous. They would lure one of the smaller alien crafts away from the main fleet. Then, when the scientists weakened its shield for a brief moment, they would strike with everything they had. If it worked, the world would see that the invaders were not invincible. If it failed, the team would die, and Earth would fall deeper into despair. The team boarded their jets, old machines compared to the alien ships, but still fast and sharp. Daniel sat in the cockpit, his hands trembling slightly. He had flown before, but never against something like this. He whispered to himself, "We do not kneel." Above the ocean, the trap was set. The scientists sent out false signals, imitating human resistance in the area. One alien craft broke away from the fleet, drawn by the bait. Its dark shape descended into the trap zone. Now, the general ordered. The jets roared forward. The alien ship's shield glimmered, untouchable, but the scientists triggered their device. For just a moment, the shield flickered. Daniel and the others fired everything: missiles, cannons, rockets. For the first time since the invasion began, an alien ship shook under human fire. Flames erupted along its side, pieces of dark metal fell into the sea. The shield returned a second later, but the damage was done. The humans cheered, their voices breaking through the fear that had chained them for months. Across the world, screens lit up with the news. An alien ship is damaged. They can be hurt. In the alien fleet, silence fell. The invaders had not expected this. To them, humans were weak, afraid, simple. But now they had seen the truth. Humans were dangerous, not because of their weapons, but because they never stopped fighting. On the ground, Amina heard the news. She smiled for the first time in weeks and whispered to her brother, "The war has begun." And in the sky, Daniel looked at the smoke rising from the alien ship and felt his heart pound. This was only the first strike, the smallest of victories. But sometimes, the smallest victory was enough to change the course of everything. The invaders had demanded Earth's submission. Instead, they had awakened Earth's defiance. The real battle was coming. The ocean still burned where the damaged alien ship had fallen. Black smoke curled into the sky, and the world watched with wide eyes. For the first time since the invasion began, Earth had struck back. It was not a victory, not even close, but it was proof. Proof that the invaders were not untouchable. In homes, villages, and cities, people whispered the news to each other. A child in South America shouted, "We hurt them." A soldier in Asia tightened his grip on his rifle. Amina told her brother, "They can bleed. That means they can fall." And far above, in the silent halls of the alien fleet, the invaders were no longer calm. Inside one of the massive ships, their leaders gathered. Their bodies were tall, metallic, their faces hidden behind shifting masks of light. They had come to Earth expecting obedience. They had calculated every possibility, but they had not expected this. One of them spoke in a voice like broken glass. "The humans have teeth." Another answered coldly, "Then we break them faster." That night, the retaliation began. The skies lit up with fire as alien ships descended over the world's largest cities. Their weapons were not loud explosions but silent beams of light that melted metal and stone. In Paris, the Eiffel Tower crumbled into dust. In Tokyo, entire blocks vanished in seconds. Panic spread like wildfire. The invaders wanted to erase the hope before it could grow. But humans are strange creatures. The attacks did not only bring fear. They brought anger. And anger spread even faster than fear. Daniel's jet squadron returned to the hidden base after their mission. They expected praise, but instead, the general's face was grim. "They are striking back," he told them. "Cities are falling. Millions are in danger. This is the price of our defiance." Daniel clenched his fists. "Then we can't stop now," he said. "If we kneel, all of this will mean nothing." The general looked at him, and for the first time, a small smile broke through the scar on his face. "Good. That is exactly what they must never understand. Humans don't kneel, even when the world burns." In Africa, Amina and her brother watched as alien drones swept across the desert, scanning villages. The people ran to hide, but Amina stood firm. She gathered the villagers, her voice carrying over the sand. "They want us to fear them," she said. "But fear is not chains. Fear is fire. We will use it." The villagers looked at her with wide eyes. Some handed her old rifles, others stones, knives, whatever they had. Against alien ships, these weapons meant little. But Amina's courage was stronger than the weapons themselves. Her defiance made others rise. All over Earth, the same thing happened. Leaders who had hidden now spoke to their people. Soldiers who had laid down their arms returned to fight. Civilians who had only prayed for safety began to act. The world was uniting, not because it had planned to, but because it had no choice. The invaders saw this and grew restless. They had destroyed cities, crushed armies, silenced governments, but still the humans refused to kneel. One alien commander whispered, "They fight with nothing. And yet, they fight." In the mountain base, the scientists worked day and night, studying the weakness they had found. "It is not much," one of them admitted. "But if we combine our efforts, we might open their shields longer. Maybe even minutes." The general nodded. "Minutes are enough for humanity." Daniel listened, his heart pounding. He thought of the burning cities, of the people hiding in fear, of Amina standing in the desert shouting at the sky. He knew that Earth's war would not be won in one battle. It would be a war of will. And humans, he believed, had stronger will than any invader could imagine. The next day, the aliens made a new broadcast. Their cold voices echoed across every device. "You resist. You fight. Then you will suffer. We will break your cities one by one. We will take your skies, your seas, your land. You will not rise again." Daniel listened to the broadcast and laughed bitterly. "They don't understand," he whispered. "Every time they destroy something, they give us another reason to fight." And indeed, while the invaders rained destruction, something unstoppable spread across Earth. Not fear, not surrender, but unity. For the first time in history, humans stopped fighting each other. Nations that had once been enemies now shared weapons, food, and knowledge. It was as if the invasion had forced humanity to remember what it truly was: one people, one planet. Above Earth, the alien leaders grew uneasy. They had expected quick victory. Instead, they had planted the seed of their own defeat. In the desert, Amina raised a broken rifle against the sky. In the mountains, the general prepared his soldiers for another strike. And in New York, Daniel looked up at the massive ship still hovering above the city. He whispered a promise to himself and to the world: "You will not take this planet. You will not take us. If you want Earth, you will pay for every inch with your blood." The war had only begun, but already, the invaders had made their greatest mistake. They thought fear would break humanity. Instead, it had made humanity unbreakable. The world was no longer silent. Sirens screamed across cities, soldiers moved in hurried lines, and the skies burned with the glow of alien ships. The invasion had shifted. What began as shadow and intimidation was now open war. In the hidden mountain base, the general stood before his soldiers. His scarred face looked colder than stone. "This is it," he said. "The first true battle. They are bringing their fleet to crush us. We will not let them." His voice carried not only through the base but through every secret channel linked to resistance groups across the globe. On the screens, alien ships were gathering above the Atlantic Ocean. Dozens of them, dark giants, their shields glowing faintly. If they took the ocean, they would cut the world in half, isolating continents and breaking human unity before it could grow stronger. Daniel sat inside his jet, checking his weapons. The last time, he had only faced one ship. Now, the fleet waiting above the water looked endless. His chest felt heavy, but his eyes burned with determination. "If this is where we stand," he whispered, "then this is where we fight." Far away, in the desert, Amina and her village had joined a larger resistance force. They had no jets, no great weapons, only old trucks and stolen alien drones they barely understood. But Amina's voice had become a spark. She stood on a crate, shouting to hundreds of frightened but determined people. "We are not fighting for land. We are not fighting for power. We are fighting for each other. And if we fall standing." The people roared with her words, lifting weapons high. Fear had not disappeared, but courage now stood beside it. When the battle began, it was like nothing Earth had ever seen. The first human missiles launched from submarines hidden deep in the Atlantic. They streaked upward, burning bright, striking against the shields of the alien ships. Most exploded harmlessly, but some found their target just as the scientists triggered their device. Shields flickered, and for seconds, human fire broke through. One alien craft shuddered and fell into the sea. "Target down." Daniel's voice filled the comms. "They can fall." But the aliens struck back. Beams of white light cut across the sky, erasing entire squadrons in a blink. Battleships on the ocean surface melted as if they were made of wax. The air was filled with fire and smoke, the water below boiling with debris. Daniel's squadron darted through the chaos, weaving between blasts. He fired again and again, watching one more alien ship take damage. "Keep pushing," he shouted. "Don't give them the sky." On the ground, resistance groups across the world launched their own attacks. In Africa, Amina's people used stolen drones to ambush alien scouts. In Europe, fighters struck convoys that landed from the sky. In Asia, hidden bases launched waves of rockets, not to destroy but to distract, forcing the invaders to split their focus. For every alien ship that fell, 10 more remained. But humanity was no longer silent. The world was alive with defiance. Inside one alien command ship, the leaders watched the battle. One of them hissed, "Their weapons are weak. Their losses are many. And yet, they continue." Another replied, "They are not fighting for survival alone. They fight for something else. Something we do not understand." Back in the Atlantic, Daniel's jet shook violently as a blast clipped his wing. Smoke filled the cockpit, alarms screamed, but he refused to turn back. He locked onto another alien craft, waiting for the shield to flicker again. The scientists triggered their device. Daniel fired. The missile struck true, and the alien ship tore apart in flames. "Yes!" he shouted, but his celebration was cut short. Another beam of white light ripped past him, so close it blinded his vision. For a heartbeat, he thought it was over. But when the light faded, he was still alive. His jet was damaged, barely flying, but his heart was stronger than ever. On the ground, Amina and her brother fought through smoke and fire as alien drones swept over their village. One drone cornered them, its weapons glowing. Amina raised her broken rifle, knowing it would not stop the machine. But before the drone could fire, a stolen alien drone piloted by another villager smashed into it, destroying both in a fiery blast. The villagers cheered, their courage rising even as the battle raged around them. The fight dragged on for hours. By the end, the ocean was filled with wreckage, human ships and alien crafts alike. Humanity had lost much. Cities burned, armies broken. But for every loss, there was a gain. Proof that the invaders could be hurt, proof that Earth would not kneel. As the sun rose over the smoking horizon, Daniel's jet barely limped back to base. His body shook with exhaustion, but when he climbed out, the general met his eyes. "We held," the general said. "Not perfectly. Not easily. But we held." Daniel nodded, his face hard. "And next time, we'll do more than hold. We'll drive them back." In the desert, Amina stood on a hill, looking at the alien ships retreating into the sky. Her brother asked, "Did we win?" She placed a hand on his shoulder. "No," she said softly. "Not yet. But they know now. We will never kneel." And far above, in the alien fleet, their leaders were silent. For the first time since the invasion began, they felt something unfamiliar. Not confidence. Not control. But doubt. The first great battle had ended. The war was only beginning. The Atlantic battle had ended, but the ocean was still black with smoke. Wreckage floated on the waves, pieces of human ships, broken jets, and even the remains of alien crafts. The sea had become a grave, but also a symbol. For the first time, humans had faced the invaders in open war and survived. Across the world, people watched the images. They saw alien fire tearing through the skies, but they also saw something else: alien ships burning, falling, defeated. That vision spread faster than any fear. Humanity had not won, but it had not been crushed either. And for a people who had been told they could never fight back, that was everything. In the mountain base, the general stood in a room filled with tired soldiers and scientists. His voice was low but steady. "We bled," he said. "But so did they. Do not forget that." Daniel sat nearby, his flight suit scorched, his body aching. He had barely made it back alive, but his eyes were sharp. "We showed the world the truth," he said. "They can fall. Now we make them fall again." The scientists, though exhausted, were already at work. The device that flickered the alien shields had lasted only seconds in the battle. But they had learned something important. One of them, a woman with gray hair and shaking hands, spoke to the general. "Their shields are strong, but not perfect. The more we study, the longer we can hold them open. We believe minutes are possible now." "Minutes will change everything," the general replied. "Prepare it." Far away, in the desert, Amina walked among her people. The village was scarred from the alien drones, houses burned, fields ruined. But the villagers were not broken. They were rebuilding already, carrying water, patching walls, sharing food. Amina's brother looked at her with wide eyes. "Why do they keep fighting us?" he asked. She placed her hand on his shoulder. "Because we refuse to kneel. And as long as we refuse, we are dangerous to them." Her words carried through the village, spreading like fire. Soon, other villages nearby joined them. Men and women brought weapons, some stolen, some handmade. The desert was becoming a fortress of human defiance. But not only the humans were restless. Inside the alien command ship, the leaders gathered again. Their glowing faces flickered with unease. One of them hissed, "They lost more than we did. Their weapons are weak. Why do they not kneel?" Another answered in a voice that echoed like thunder. "Because they are not logical. They fight beyond reason. Their unity grows, not weakens. Every blow we strike makes them stronger." Silence filled the chamber. For the first time, the invaders tasted something alien to themselves: doubt. One leader slammed a metallic hand against the table. "Then we end them completely. No more half measures. We burn their cities, we break their world. They will drown in fire." The others agreed, but deep inside, they feared what they had awakened. Humans were no longer prey. They were predators rising from the ashes. Back on Earth, Daniel walked through the ruined city of New York. The massive alien ship still hovered above, watching silently, as if daring the humans to strike again. People in the streets looked at him differently now. Not as just another man, but as someone who had fought back when no one else would. Children pointed, whispering his name. Mothers nodded at him with quiet respect. He did not feel like a hero. He only felt tired. But when he looked at the faces of those around him, he understood something. The invaders had wanted to crush Earth's spirit. Instead, they had made it stronger. That night, the general called Daniel into the command room. Maps glowed on the screens, showing alien fleets spread across the globe. "They will strike harder next time," the general said. "But so will we. We are building something. Not just resistance groups, not just scattered armies. We are building a world army. Humanity united." Daniel stared at the maps. For the first time, he saw not just chaos, but a plan forming. Lines of defense, points of attack, places where alien weakness could be exploited. His heart pounded. "When do we move?" The general's eyes hardened. "Soon. The next battle will not be defense. It will be offense. We will not wait for them to strike. We will take the fight to them." At the same time, across the desert, Amina's people received a message, one that had been carried secretly across continents. It called on every village, every city, every fighter to unite. She read the words aloud: "The time of hiding is over. The time of war is here." The villagers cheered, their voices rising into the night. For the first time, Amina believed that Earth truly had a chance. Not because of weapons, not because of strength, but because of unity. And above, The alien fleet shifted, preparing for its next assault. Their leaders whispered among themselves, but none dared to say aloud the truth that haunted them. They had come to make Earth kneel. Instead, they had awakened something they could not control. The war was no longer about submission. It was about survival. For both sides. The days after the Atlantic battle were not quiet. The world buzzed with movement, whispers, and preparation. In every hidden base, in every ruined city, humans were no longer waiting. They were building. Old factories that once made cars now produced weapons. Ships that once carried goods now carried soldiers. Satellites in orbit, long silent from alien interference, flickered back online as human engineers found ways to slip past the invaders' jamming signals. It was as if the whole planet had awakened, every hand and every mind turning toward one single purpose: survival. In the mountain base, Daniel trained with his squadron day and night. His jet had been repaired, stronger than before, fitted with new weapons the scientists had designed using pieces of alien wreckage. Every time he looked at the alien metal fixed to his craft, he thought the same words: "We are learning." The general watched the preparations with quiet pride. "They believed they could scare us into silence," he said to his officers. "Instead, they taught us how to fight." His scarred face looked older now, but his eyes burned brighter. The scientists had made progress. Their device to break the alien shields had been improved. "We can hold the shield open longer," the gray-haired woman explained. "Not seconds, but whole minutes. Enough for coordinated strikes." Daniel nodded. Minutes were life. Minutes were victory. Meanwhile, far across the desert, Amina's camp had grown. What began as a single village now stretched into a vast gathering of fighters from many lands. Men and women trained with stolen alien drones, learning how to turn the machines against their masters. Mechanics worked on armored trucks, welding plates of scavenged metal to protect them from alien fire. Children carried water, tended fires, and painted words on the sides of the vehicles: "We rise." Amina stood before them at night, her voice carrying over the campfires. "We are not soldiers," she said. "We are people. Farmers, builders, teachers, children. And yet we fight. Not because we want war, but because they gave us no choice. Remember this: every step we take is for each other, for our world." The people cheered, and her brother smiled at her with pride. She had become a leader without ever asking to be one. But while humans prepared, so did the invaders. In the vast silence of space above Earth, the alien fleet gathered. Their leaders met in the great command ship, their glowing faces grim. "We underestimated them," one said. "They are not logical," another replied. "Every strike makes them stronger. Every loss makes them fiercer." "Then we will not strike them piece by piece," the commander growled. "We will crush them all at once. We will bring the full weight of our fleet against their strongest defenses. We will drown their unity in fire." Their plan was brutal. They would strike the heart of human resistance, the Atlantic base, the desert camps, the last surviving cities. One massive attack to burn away all hope. But the aliens did not know that their enemy was listening. Deep within the mountain base, human intelligence teams had captured fragments of alien transmissions. It was difficult, risky, but enough to reveal the truth: the aliens were preparing for a final strike. The general called Daniel, the scientists, and other leaders to the strategy room. Maps glowed on the screens. "They are coming," he said. "Not with a whisper, not with shadows. With everything. This will be the battle that decides it all." Silence filled the room. Everyone knew what it meant. Billions of lives hung in the balance. Daniel's voice was steady. "Then we don't wait. We hit them first." The general looked at him. "You would strike the fleet?" "Yes," Daniel said firmly. "We don't wait for fire to fall on our cities. We take the fight to the sky. If they want one final battle, then we choose where it happens. We make it ours." The general studied him, then slowly nodded. "So be it. Humanity's first counteroffensive. Amina received the same message in the desert. She read it aloud to her people. The time has come. Prepare to march. We rise together. The villagers erupted in cheers, banging weapons against shields, their voices echoing into the night. For the first time, Amina felt no fear when she looked at the stars. Only resolve. Above Earth, the alien fleet shifted into formation, unaware that their prey was no longer waiting to be hunted. Humanity was uniting, planning, sharpening its claws. The war had begun with shadows. Now it would move into fire. The next battle would not be defense. It would be the strike that decided the fate of Earth. And in the silence between worlds, both sides prepared for the storm. The sky was burning. From every continent, people looked upward and saw the alien fleet moving like a storm. Hundreds of ships, black and sharp, filling the heavens. The invaders had come to end the war in one crushing strike. But Earth was no longer waiting. The general stood before his soldiers in the mountain base, his voice echoing through every radio, every hidden speaker across the world. This is it. The day they thought would break us. Instead, it will be the day we rise. We fight not as nations, not as strangers, but as one people, one Earth. Remember this, humanity does not kneel. In the desert, Amina listened to the speech with her brother beside her. Around them, thousands of fighters readied their weapons, trucks rumbling across the sand. She raised her rifle high. For our world, she cried, and the desert roared back. In his jet, Daniel pulled on his helmet, his heart steady. He thought of the burning cities, the people who had fallen, the children who had whispered his name with hope. This was no longer just survival. This was destiny. The scientists triggered the shield breaker. Across the skies, alien shields flickered, opening like wounds. Human jets, missiles, and drones surged forward. The first wave struck hard, slamming into alien hulls. Ships that once seemed invincible now burned, falling from the sky like broken stars. The aliens fought back with fury. Beams of white light cut through the air, wiping out squadrons in seconds. Cities shook as explosions ripped the earth. The ocean boiled with fire. The cost was terrible, but still, humanity did not stop. Daniel's squadron cut through the smoke, targeting a massive command ship. The shield breaker pulsed, giving them minutes. He fired everything, missiles, cannons, rockets, until the ship tore apart in a blazing explosion. His calm filled with cheers. For every jet destroyed, 10 more pressed on. In the desert, Amina's fighters ambushed alien ground forces. Stolen drones turned against their masters, crashing into alien walkers with suicidal force. Villagers who once hid in fear now charged into battle, shouting the same words again and again. We do not kneel. The aliens, once silent and cold, now shouted among themselves. They do not break. One commander hissed inside his ship. Another replied in despair. They grow stronger. The more we strike, the harder they fight. The invaders had underestimated more than weapons. They had underestimated will. In the command base, the scientists activated the final phase of their plan. The shield breaker device was pushed to its limits, pulsing across the entire battlefield. Alien shields collapsed one by one, exposing the fleet. The general gave the order with a single word. Now. Every cannon, every missile, every drone fired. The sky became a storm of fire. Alien ships fell in burning waves, crashing into the sea, the deserts, the mountains. Humanity's voice rose in unison, not fear, not silence, but defiance. Daniel's jet was hit, alarms screaming as flames spread across the cockpit. He knew he would not survive the landing, but he refused to turn back. With one final push, he rammed his jet into an alien warship, the explosion tearing the vessel apart. His last words echoed through the calm, "For Earth." In the desert, Amina saw the sky raining with alien wreckage. Her brother tugged her arm. "Did we win?" he asked. Her eyes filled with tears, but her voice was steady. "Not yet. But we will." Above the planet, the alien fleet was breaking. Their leaders shouted in panic, their glowing faces trembling. "Retreat!" one screamed. "This world is poison. These creatures cannot be conquered." And so the mighty fleet that came to enslave Earth turned and fled, their broken ships limping back into the void. Silence followed. A silence not of fear, but of victory. All across the world, people poured into the streets. They cheered, they wept, they raised their fists to the sky. For the first time since the invasion began, the stars belonged to them again. The general stood before his soldiers, his scarred face lit by the fires of fallen ships. "They came to make us bow," he said. "Instead, we showed them who we are. Remember this day. Humanity stood. Humanity fought. Humanity rose." In the desert, Amina hugged her brother tightly. She looked at the night sky, filled with smoke and stars, and whispered, "We are free." The war had cost much, cities burned, lives lost, heroes fallen. But Earth had endured. Humanity had endured. And in their defiance, they had proved a truth the invaders would never forget. Humans were not meant to kneel. Humans were meant to rise. The invaders had sought Earth's submission. Instead, they had unleashed their own defeat.